Today I would like to invite you to listen to the Dhammapada of the Buddha Shakyamuni, 138th, 139th, and 140th from the Buddhist scriptures on the YouTube channel Thien Thai in the USA. He will be subject to acute pain, disaster, bodily injury, or even grievous sickness, or loss of mind, or oppression by the king, or heavy accusation, or loss of relatives, or destruction of wealth, or ravaging fire that will burn his house. Upon the dissolution of the body, such unwise man will be born in hell. Thus spoke the Blessed One with a heart clear and steady, revealing the workings of karma, the ripening of unwholesome deeds, and the inevitable consequences of actions born from ignorance and desire. In the time of the Buddha, there were those who acted recklessly, deceiving themselves into thinking that strength, wealth, or position could protect them from harm. They harmed others through greed, anger, and malice, ignoring the natural law that every action carries consequence. One man, proud of his power, exploited the weak, silenced the innocent, and stole what did not belong to him, believing that his station and influence would shield him from suffering. Another spread false accusations, undermining families and community harmony, thinking that cunning words could escape the reflection of deeds. A third indulged in attachment and indulgence, careless of the suffering he caused, thinking that pleasure and comfort could prevent the awakening of consequence. The Buddha saw their minds clouded with unawareness, and he spoke to illuminate the path of truth. The teaching was clear. Pain and loss are not random punishments, but natural ripening of unskillful actions. Bodily injury, sickness, fear, grief, oppression, and calamity arise from seeds sown by the mind. Wealth can be destroyed, houses burned, relationships severed, and peace dissolved when the mind acts from ignorance, cruelty, or selfishness. Even the dissolution of the body does not end these consequences for the unwise, who act without restraint or compassion, are reborn in realms of suffering. The Buddha's words were not meant to frighten for the sake of fear, but to awaken responsibility and reflection. The stories of the three men illustrate the subtlety and inevitability of karmic law. One man who exploited others eventually fell ill, lost wealth, and endured grief that no power could shield. The second, who manipulated and accused, found himself isolated, attacked, and accused in return, unable to escape the results of his own mind. The third, who clung blindly to pleasure, experienced loss, suffering, and dissolution, witnessing the impermanence of all he had cherished. The verses are intertwined, revealing the scope of cause and effect. Unwholesome deeds bring not only immediate discomfort, but also long-term consequences that manifest in body, mind, and circumstance. The Buddha taught that wisdom begins with seeing the consequences of action before they arise, that restraint protects one from suffering, and that compassion prevents harm to others and oneself. These teachings invite reflection on the choices we make each day, on the small actions often overlooked, and on the intentions that shape them. Even a careless word, a thought rooted in ill will, or a desire acted upon without mindfulness can plant seeds that ripen into suffering. The verses encourage practitioners to cultivate awareness, restraint, generosity, and compassion. The Dharma points to the cultivation of virtue, to acts of kindness, to the careful use of speech and action. By doing so, one avoids the fire of consequence described in the verses, the grief, loss, and harm that arise naturally when the mind is clouded by ignorance. The stories and the teachings together illuminate the path. One sees clearly that suffering is not arbitrary, that rebirth in realms of torment is not fate, but the result of unskillful living. And that awakening begins the moment one turns the mind toward restraint, compassion, and wisdom. Through careful attention, one can prevent harm, protect the innocent, and live in harmony with the law of cause and effect, cultivating conditions that bring peace, stability, and true happiness. The Dharma now unfolds further, inviting the heart to dwell on the subtle and pervasive effects of unwholesome actions, showing that suffering arises not only through overt misdeeds, but through hidden intentions, thoughtless speech, and careless deeds that accumulate like seeds in the fertile ground of consciousness. The Buddha taught that even a single moment of greed, anger, or delusion, when acted upon, shapes the mind and the world, and that these ripen inevitably in ways often unforeseen. One who harms, deceives, or exploits, even subtly, is already beginning to taste the first stirrings of consequence. Though the full experience may come later, across time and circumstance, across bodies and lifetimes. The wise listen and reflect, for they understand that the path of awakening is not merely avoidance of external suffering, but transformation of the internal currents of the mind. A single malicious thought can, if unchecked, grow into a habit of cruelty. A single moment of heedlessness can, if repeated, become the soil of disaster. This is why the Buddha emphasized mindfulness, restraint, and careful attention to all acts, whether grand or small, visible or concealed. The mind that is unobserved becomes a breeding ground for pain, not only for oneself, but for all beings encountered. Every encounter, every word, every gesture becomes an opportunity either to plant seeds of harmony or to sow suffering. The Buddha taught that wisdom is the antidote to ignorance, that restraint is the shield against regret, and that compassion is the balm that soothes the fires kindled by thoughtless action. Those who heed the Dharma see that calamity, illness, injury, loss, accusation, family conflict, destruction of wealth, and even the ravaging fire of circumstance is not punishment but natural consequence, a teacher in form, calling the mind to awareness. The unwise, blinded by desire, pride, or attachment, fail to recognize these teachers and suffer acutely as a result. They are like travelers who ignore warning signs along a treacherous path, moving blindly into danger. The Dharma offers the means to see, to understand, and to alter the path before disaster arrives, showing that pain can be prevented through mindfulness and virtuous action. Those who cultivate ethical conduct, generosity, and compassion create conditions that bear wholesome results, protecting body, mind, and livelihood from harm. The Buddha's stories of those who act unwisely illustrate not only the inevitability of karmic results, but also the opportunities for insight, growth, and change. Even as misfortune arises, the heart that is awake may see the origin of suffering, recognize its connection to past actions, and choose differently. This recognition does not remove the consequences, but it transforms the response, allowing acceptance without despair, learning without resentment, and care without fear. The verses remind all beings that rebirth in realms of torment is the ultimate manifestation of unresolved, unskillful action, not an arbitrary fate. And that awareness and restraint are the tools that allow one to navigate life with wisdom and compassion. The practitioner comes to see clearly that the dissolution of the body is not the end of responsibility, that the mind carries the consequences beyond present circumstances, and that each moment of mindfulness contributes to a foundation of peace and security. Through diligent practice, restraint, and observation, the mind gradually ceases to sow seeds of suffering. The heart softens toward all beings, and life becomes an expression of harmony rather than discord. The Buddha's teaching calls us to reflect not only on the dramatic forms of harm described in the verses, such as sickness, loss, or calamity, but also on the subtle ways in which thought, speech, and action can disturb the balance of life. The unwise man is not only the one who acts violently or cruelly outwardly, but also the one who fosters greed, jealousy, and anger inwardly, allowing these tendencies to direct behavior unconsciously. By cultivating awareness, vigilance, and compassion, the practitioner interrupts this cycle, transforming potential suffering into wisdom, regret into insight, and fear into courage. Thus the heart learns that every action matters, that no deed is insignificant, and that the care taken in each moment can prevent calamity, protect the innocent, and nourish the seeds of peace. The Dharma offers not condemnation, but illumination, a clear view of cause and effect, a path of restraint, and the opportunity to turn the mind toward virtue, ensuring that life unfolds in harmony with the natural law and the enduring presence of compassion. The teaching deepens, guiding the mind to contemplate the interplay of action, intention, and consequence, showing that the mind is both the origin of suffering and the key to liberation. The Buddha taught that when one acts from greed, anger, or delusion, the consequences arise naturally, like waves following the wind, reaching not only oneself, but all those touched by one's deeds. One who covets, deceives, or harms will find obstacles manifest in ways both visible and hidden. Illness may arise as the body reflects the unrest of the mind. Relationships may fracture as hearts respond to harm. Opportunities may fade, and wealth, however obtained, may be lost. The Buddha explained that the intensity of suffering is often proportionate to the depth of attachment, pride, or desire motivating the actions. In this understanding, he urged mindfulness and restraint as the first line of protection, not only for oneself, but for the world. Every moment of choice carries weight. A word spoken in anger reverberates long after the mouth has closed. A thought held with jealousy ripens silently into subtle hostility. Even seemingly small acts of carelessness or indulgence accumulate, shaping the landscape of future experience. The Dharma teaches that insight into this process cultivates responsibility, humility, and gentleness. One begins to move through life with awareness of the consequences, choosing words and deeds that protect rather than harm, that ease suffering rather than amplify it. In the stories related to the verses, those who acted unwisely experienced calamity in body, mind, and circumstance. One who seized wealth selfishly saw it vanish through theft, misfortune, or mismanagement. One who slandered others was accused and distrusted, finding themselves isolated and fearful. One who indulged in craving and ignorance faced illness, loss, and disruption that could not be avoided. The Buddha's words serve as guidance. These outcomes are not the will of an external judge, but the inevitable flowering of unskillful actions. And they exist to awaken understanding before the mind becomes hardened in ignorance. The practitioner learns that awareness of cause and effect is not abstract, but intimate, touching every breath, every glance, every interaction. To see clearly is to act with care. To act with care is to prevent suffering. To prevent suffering is to cultivate peace within and around oneself. The verses illustrate this truth across time and circumstance, showing that even after the body dissolves, unwise action continues to shape experience until transformed by awareness and virtue. The Dharma therefore emphasizes ongoing reflection, cultivation of ethical conduct, and dedication to the welfare of others. By observing the mind, restraining harmful impulses, and embracing kindness, the practitioner gradually interrupts the cycle of suffering. Pain that might have arisen from unskillful action is softened or avoided. Relationships are nurtured rather than broken. Stability and prosperity arise in alignment with natural law. The Buddha's teaching calls not only for avoidance of harm, but for proactive engagement with wholesome qualities, generosity, patience, humility, and compassion. By actively planting seeds of virtue, one builds the foundation for happiness, security, and peace that endures beyond fleeting circumstance. Even as difficulties arise, the mind trained in mindfulness sees them as conditions to practice wisdom, not as punishments to resent. This understanding transforms suffering into opportunity, misfortune into reflection, and challenge into guidance. The Dharma shows that freedom is born not in escape from consequence, but in alignment with cause and effect. By cultivating clarity and restraint, one learns to navigate life with skill, ensuring that thoughts, words, and actions create harmony rather than chaos. The verses and their stories are therefore mirrors, teaching that the mind is the root of experience, that unwise action plants seeds of suffering, and that through mindful living, the practitioner can prevent harm, nurture peace, and awaken to the path of liberation. Every step taken in awareness, every word spoken with care, every act of compassion strengthens the foundation of life aligned with wisdom, creating conditions in which both oneself and others may thrive safely and peacefully. As the Dharma settles gently in the heart, the practitioner is invited to rest in awareness, allowing the teachings of the Buddha to take root in every thought, word, and action. The verses reveal clearly that suffering arises naturally from unwholesome deeds, yet they also show the path of freedom through mindfulness, restraint, and compassion. One who cultivates awareness sees the consequences of action before they manifest, preventing pain, protecting the innocent, and fostering harmony. The stories illuminate the workings of karma. Illness, loss, accusation, disaster, and even the suffering of rebirth are not arbitrary, but the natural flowering of unskillful actions. By observing the mind, restraining harmful impulses, and practicing virtue, one transforms potential suffering into understanding, grief into insight, and fear into courage. Life becomes a field for the cultivation of wisdom, where each choice, each word, each action contributes to the stability, peace, and well-being of oneself and all beings. The The practitioner learns that the dissolution of the body is not the end of responsibility, for the mind carries the imprint of action into future experience. In this understanding, every moment is precious, every opportunity for kindness and restraint meaningful. The heart grows soft with compassion, yet strong with discernment. Fear of consequence transforms into respect for life. The impulse to harm transforms into the courage to protect. The Buddha's teachings, as expressed in these verses, guide the mind steadily toward liberation, showing that the path of mindfulness and virtue brings lasting peace, harmony, and clarity. Through diligent practice, the heart becomes a refuge for oneself and others, and the mind learns to move through the world without igniting suffering. This is the gentle, profound, and living Dharma, revealing the law of cause and effect, the beauty of restraint, and the power of compassion in daily life. Thank you for watching my video. Namo Amitabha. I wish to bring this merit towards all disciples and sentient beings, all of whom will attain Buddhahood. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate your time.